Everyone, we're going to get started here in just a few minutes. So we're still a couple minutes out from 7:30, and I am going to give everyone just a couple minutes to join us. So hang tight, grab a notebook and a pen, and again, we're going to get started in just a few minutes. Minutes. I just want to give everybody a couple more minutes to hop on here. So again, if you need to grab a bottle of water, grab a notebook, and we're going to get started here in just a few minutes. I'm going to say that again. I said, hi, Katie. So I just went ahead on the right-hand side and I made your chat over there public. And so feel free to ask questions or make comments as we go throughout the seminar here tonight. And so as you can see, I am sharing my screen, which shows you the PowerPoint. And so this class was originally designed as a women's wine and wellness night. So I'm sorry that we're not all sitting together having a glass of wine in the office, but feel free to pour one. And again, this is a super safe space to talk about women's wellness and health overall. And so we're going to go through some things that maybe you haven't really talked about in a group setting before. So feel free to ask any questions that you want to. And I will also go ahead. I'm going to type in my cell phone number down here too, just in case anyone has a private question that they want to ask, and therefore you will not be named, and you can contact me that way too, and I can answer some questions that way also. And so we'll go ahead and we'll get started here. So thanks for joining us. This is one of my favorite workshops that I get to do overall. It really touches home for me, and you're going to understand a little bit more why in just a second when I get into a little bit deeper my personal health story. And so before we get started, I do want to give you some ground rules for how to approach a workshop. There are some of you who are on the line right now who have been on literally 20, 25 workshops over the course of the years being in our office. And there are some of you who this is the first workshop you've ever tuned into. And so whoever you are, I am so excited that you're here because your commitment to getting on tonight shows that you're a lifelong learner. And that's what everything in life is, including your health. It is a journey to continue to get a little bit better every single day. And so I applaud you for hopping on. The best way to take advantage of this class is, number one, make sure you are in a place where you can sit down and really just have the next 45 minutes to tune into the information. So turn off your television and, go into another room away from your kids so that you can just be super focused. Pour yourself a glass of wine if you want to. And the second thing is make sure that you're taking notes. And so even when I've sat through a workshop before, and I've been to several seminars that I've been to 4, 5, 6 times, every single time I'm sitting through it, I'm a different version of me. And with that, I get something a little bit different out of it. And so I always make sure that I am taking notes. Anything I hear that just vibrates with my soul, or anything that I hear that I want to remember because I want to apply it, or any questions that I have, I always write them down. And so write notes as you go throughout today. Science shows that the more you write things down, the more connections you make in the neurons in your brain, and the more likely you are to be able to recall the information after the fact, even if you never go through those notes again. So take notes. And then the very third thing that I will encourage you to do is ask questions. And so again, on the right side of the screen, there's a public chat. And so if anything I say resonates with you and you're just like, yes, amen, feel free to write that down there just to kind of say an amen, yes, and point it out to other people. And feel free to ask questions down there too. And I will try to answer those questions as live as possible. And if I don't get to do that, we will start to answer some questions at the end. So let's go ahead and dive into things here. So my story. A lot of you have heard my story when it comes to my headaches, but I can tell you that my health story started a lot younger than that. And so when I was in 4th grade, I got my period. It was Mother's Day, and I'll never forget it because I had no idea what was going on. I just didn't feel well that day. And we were at a restaurant, and I told my mom I had to go to the bathroom. And we went to the bathroom together, and I pulled down my pants, and I had brown all in my pants. And I looked at my mom and I said, "Mom, come over and help me," because I thought that I had an accident and I thought I pooped my pants. And she came over and she said, "Nope, you have your period." And I had no idea what that meant. Well, over the next several years, I found out that meant a lot of pain for me. And so I went through puberty very early, and I developed very big boobs. And so I was probably the only 5th grader who had really big boobs, which isn't a good thing when you're a 5th grader. And I got really, really painful cycles. And so they were so painful that I would be home from school every single month, crawled up into a ball, and I would have to miss a day of school. And so my mother took me to my OB, and my OB's answer through all of this was, "Well, go ahead and you're just gonna have to take a higher dose of ibuprofen." And so I was told to take 4 ibuprofen when I thought my period was coming. And so here I was thinking my period was coming, mind you, days before it actually came, because that's very common with an estrogen dominance in your body. So I had tender breasts, I had just fog, I was very moody and irritable, and my fatigue just completely covered my body. This was days before I actually got my period, and I would start taking 4 ibuprofen. And so I would do that literally 4 or 5 days. I'd finally get my period, I'd crawl up in a ball, I'd be in so much pain, and then eventually my period would go away, and the next day I would be a little bit more back to normal until the next month came. And so through all of this, my mother is concerned. I have acne all over my face throughout high school. I end up going to my OB again, and I end up getting prescribed birth control, which is fantastic for a kid in high school to be taking birth control, right? And so I ended up getting on birth control, which of course cleared up my face, slightly helped my cramps, even though they never really got better. And that's what I did for many, many years until my older brother, who is also a chiropractor in Fort Wayne, Indiana, he sat my mom down and said, Elise should really not be on birth control. There's danger that comes with this. And so I ended up getting off of the birth control. And that was my story growing up as far as my health goes. And so fast forward, here we are many years later after everything that I've learned in my health. And I can tell you that the cause of my menstrual irregularity, the cause of my pain, the cause of my acne was not because I was missing a bottle of ibuprofen in my body. And it's not because my body needed birth control. It's because I needed to figure out what was causing the hormonal issues that were going on in my body overall. Keep this in mind. In the 1840s, the average age for a woman to start menstruating was 16 and a half years old. Fast forward to 1928, that went to 14 years old. And then today, the average age for a woman to start menstruating is 12. Now, 15% of girls will start menstruating at 8 or 9 years old. That's called precocious puberty. And that's what happened with me. And so major hormonal issues that I went through. And so part of the reason that I'm so excited to do this workshop with you is I want you to know that there is another way. And my story doesn't have to be your story or your child's story or anyone else's story. And so the vision for our office since we've opened our clinic has always been to teach people that the best doctor lives within you. And that doctor knows how to heal you 100% of the time. Your body is always healing, always maintaining. It is self-regulating 100% of the time, as long as there's no interference in your body's ability to heal. And if you can own that concept, you can own your health. And so what that means is through daily life, there are things that get in the way of our body's natural ability to heal. In essence, they're interferences. And if we can figure out what those interferences are, we can allow the body to heal, and you'll see huge things happening overall. And so my vision for our community is for us to see more what I call generational health. And so you've all heard the story of my grandfather as well. If you haven't, if you're a guest on the line, the long story short is I didn't get to have grandparents growing up. 3 out of 4 of my grandparents passed away before I ever had a chance to know who they are, let alone recall any conversation being had with them. One of them, my grandfather, Ed, I got to know him through high school, but the last several years of his life, he was not well. And so I really didn't get to know him at all either. And so when I say generational health, my vision for our community is that we literally have great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, and children that are coming into our office that are getting adjusted, that are maintaining health in their lives, and that are living lives free of drugs, free of surgeries, free of vaccinations, free of medications, and free of health issues overall. And I can tell you, I opened my office. My office has actually been open for about 5.5 years, that clinic that you guys come into every single week. And while most people come in because of neck pain and back pain and headaches, and while those things do always get better with time, as long as you're persistent with figuring out the cause and helping your body to heal from the inside out, it is the other stories in our office that trump them all. It is stories of women who have, menopausal issues that go away, who have thyroid issues who go away, people who get off of medications, people who were diagnosed with PCOS and told that they'd never have babies, who have become pregnant in our office and had and started families in our office. It is those stories that we live for. And so I always say that it's about having less pharmacies and more farmers markets, less medications, and more meditation, less hospitals and more gyms, less sick days and more family days. And so that's what this whole evening is about right now, is taking control of our health. And so where are we at when it comes to women's health? Understand that your health is your responsibility. And if you change your actions, you can change your story. Where you are right now in every area of your life, not just in your health, is a culmination of the actions that you have taken throughout your life. And so that means if you don't like where you are when it comes to your health, if you don't like where you are when it comes to your finances, if you don't like where you are when it comes to anything, all we have to do is change your actions and we can change your story. And so the story for many women right now in this country, over half of women 50 years of age and older suffer from osteoporosis. Almost 40% of women have an underactive thyroid. That's not including an overactive thyroid. And of those women with an underactive thyroid, 10% of those are subclinical. And I think that number is actually very low. I think many women have subclinical thyroid issues that have no idea it's going on. We have 1 in 6 people that experience depression or anxiety in the past week. 1 in 6 people. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer, right? That's already part of some of your stories who are sitting here listening to this. 1 in 3 women, 33% of women will be diagnosed with some form of cancer. 33% of women suffer from PMS. 12% of all women have difficulty getting pregnant. And I think that's something that's not talked about very much. You would be surprised at how common it is to have difficulties getting pregnant, and also how common it is to have a miscarriage or multiple miscarriages. 1 in 4 women have a pelvic floor dysfunction. Your pelvic floor can be responsible for incontinence, urinary frequency, painful cycles, painful intercourse, difficulty with pregnancy can all come back to the health of your pelvic floor. And 200 million women worldwide suffer with that dowager's hump, which is kind of that little old lady syndrome. And so many stories of health issues out there right now. And again, most of these stories are stories that we can help to change. And so take a look at this. To me, this is, went a little too far there. To me, this is the definition of insanity. This is just one study. I have seen countless studies that highlight that most chronic diseases right now in our country are 100% reversible and 100% preventable based on, again, the actions that you're taking when it comes to your health. The CDC says that eliminating just 3 risk factors, diet, inactivity, and smoking, would prevent heart disease and stroke by up to 80%, would reduce your risk of diabetes by 80%, and would reduce all cancers by about 40%. And that is just eating well, exercising, and quitting smoking. What if we add in stress relief and sleep and self-care? What if we add in detoxing? We add in switching over our personal care products and our household products, which tend to be endocrine disruptors. And what if we add in taking care of the nervous system and getting nerve supply to every single cell, tissue, and organ in our bodies? If we add all of that together, by the way, that's what we call the 5 essentials. That's what we teach in our office. How much do you think those numbers would go up? And I can tell you that I've read those numbers go up by up to 95% is what I have read in some studies, that chronic disease is completely preventable and certainly reversible, because if you develop something, your body can heal from it. And so what I get from this, every time I read this information, what I glean from it is we are in control. So no matter who you are right now, if I've already touched on something that is your hot button, it's what you suffer with, if it's what you've been suffering with, you are in control right now. It's just about making changes. And I can tell you that it is a commitment. It is a decision. The word decision, the root of it means to cut off. And so when you decide to go all in and to cut off any other option in your health and to only make good decisions in your health moving forward, take the right actions moving forward, it's impossible not to see results with it. And so the way that we're going to go through this evening is we're first going to talk about a certain health condition that women deal with, and then we're going to go through preventative strategies that come with that health condition. And so the first one here is menopause and osteoporosis. And both of these conditions really go hand in hand. And so menopause, there are 3 different phases of menopause. The first is perimenopause, or premenopause, excuse me. And so premenopause can start from really your 30s to your 50s. I'd say generally speaking, it starts between your 40s and your 50s. And it can be anywhere from 1 to 3 years is typical. It can go up to 5 years. The sooner you start to go through premenopausal symptoms, which what does that mean? It means the estrogen in your body is starting to lower. The sooner that you start to go through that phase in your health, the longer that it will last. And so when you finally go into step 2 of menopause, which is actually medically diagnosed menopause, what does that mean? 12 consecutive months of having no period at all. Then you finally hit menopause. That happens usually on average around age 51. And then you go into postmenopause. And so postmenopause is when all estrogen has completely left your body. There's 2 problems with that. The first problem is estrogen protects your bones from leaching calcium. And so that can lead to osteopenia and osteoporosis. And then the second problem is estrogen also has a protective effect against heart disease. And so those are the 2 things that we have to worry about in women as we age is osteoporosis and heart disease. And so specifically with osteoporosis, of course, osteopenia is when you start to have a lack of bone density. That cannot be diagnosed on an x-ray. That is more so diagnosed on a DEXA scan. And then once you have osteoporosis, the concern is a risk of fracture of the bone. And so what do we do about menopause and osteoporosis? And so the first thing that's very important is it is very important for women to do resistance training. Resistance training is so key and it's so easy to do. And so using like resistance bands or using even very light weights, 3 to 5 pounds of resistance training and even body weight training can help to strengthen your bones. The reason that happens is because you end up stimulating these cells called osteoblasts, which help to build up your bone density. And so resistance training is 100% necessary, especially if you're in those menopausal years. Number 2, we have to remove things that interfere with the absorption of calcium. What interferes with the absorption of calcium? Guess what? Wheat does. There's a fascinating study that shows that the intake of wheat has a direct effect on your body's ability to absorb calcium. Calcium is the number 1 mineral within your body. Sodium and caffeine and smoking are also huge. And when I say sodium, it's not the added salt. It's not your pink Himalayan sea salt that's sitting in your pantry. It is the sodium that comes from the junk food that you eat. So it's the sodium that's added into the canned soup that's not really good for you, the boxed snacks, the processed foods that have all of this added sodium, and it gets in the way of your body being able to absorb and retain calcium. And then there's caffeine and smoking and soy. And so those are kind of the top offenders as far as dietary offenders in helping your body to absorb calcium. Number 3, you have to heal digestive issues. And so specifically like celiac disease, but really any digestive issues overall, if your body's not able to absorb the calcium that it needs through your diet, we have a problem. And so if you're somebody on the line who knows that you have chronic digestive issues, this is not just important for calcium absorption, this is important for everything. So much of your health comes back to your gut. We're going to talk a little bit more about serotonin when it comes to your gut in a little bit. And then also your immune system. And so 80% of your immune system is housed in your gut. If your gut has dysfunction, if it's messed up, if you know you have digestive issues, you will have health issues in the future if you don't already. And so when it comes to healing your gut, we're going to talk a little bit more. There's 4 R's that we look at when it comes to healing your gut that we're going to talk about in a couple of slides. Vitamin D3 and omega is incredibly important for making sure that we're absorbing calcium and keeping your bones nice and strong. Omegas are absolutely critical for all women to take. I'm going to go through a study here in a little bit that shows how omegas support reproductive function. And even if you're in menopause, we still need reproductive organs to be functioning well to make sure that your hormones are where they need to be. And a little caveat to that is recognize that menopause, estrogen lowering as we age, this is normal. It's a normal season in your life. And so there are many people that want to take biological hormones in order to not experience the effects of your body changing as you age. But understand that there is no such thing as a biological free lunch. And so you can take those hormones, and sure, that will help to alleviate some of the symptoms that you're experiencing when you go through menopause, which might be hot flashes, night sweats, moodiness, forgetfulness, but taking those synthetic hormones certainly has an effect on your health overall. Why? Because your body isn't making them. And so there are side effects to taking those things as well. Number 5 here is to minimize endocrine disruptors. And so this is huge, especially for us women. Endocrine disruptors are molecules. They tend to be endocrine mimickers, which means that if this molecule looks like this molecule, it looks exactly the same. And so this endocrine disruptor will go and it will meet a receptor, and it will cause a reaction to happen that isn't supposed to happen, or it will change a reaction or physiology within your body in an adverse way. And so a key example of endocrine disruptors, there's a lot of estrogen mimickers that will that we consume through plastic, like plastic water bottles, your Starbucks cup, through toxic makeup that you're putting on your face, and personal care products. Those things that have these estrogen mimickers can cause estrogen dominance, meaning your body perceives that there's actually too much estrogen in your body, and that can lead to a whole host of issues, including PMS like I had, and hormonal imbalances overall. And so minimizing your endocrine disruptors. Plastics and personal care products are probably the top 2. So anything you can do to completely get rid of plastic within your life and in your environment. So using a stainless steel water bottle as a reusable water bottle, not storing your food in plastic Tupperware. Instead, I use glass containers at home, especially if you're going to use plastic Tupperware, make sure that you're only putting cooled food in there. If you put food in a plastic Tupperware while it's hot, you will end up definitely leaching chemicals within that plastic into your food, and you'll end up consuming them. And a lot of those things have the endocrine mimickers within them. And then the very last one, again, is your personal care products. My makeup, I am proud to say it took me a long time. I finally found a brand of makeup that I love. It's called Crunchy, and it is one of the cleanest makeup brands that I've found. When I first started using it several years ago, they didn't have darker shades. They've moved into darker shades for like foundation now. I do have a couple of other suggestions if you don't like Crunchy, but I highly recommend trying them. I can give you the link if you want to go on and take a look at the products that they have. It is crunchy.com/Elise Hernandez. And then we also have some samples in the office if anybody wants to come in and take a look at some colors, etc., inside of the office as well. But I highly suggest switching over personal care products to more natural personal care products too. On our Facebook page, if you're not a part of it, Vitality Family Chiropractic Health Warriors. You can search that and become a part of our Facebook page. I did a Facebook Live not too long ago in my bathroom with my personal care products. So you can kind of take a look through that. And then the very last thing is, of course, chiropractic. And so there is a clinical case in the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and it looked at chiropractic and how that helps with menopause. And it showed a decrease in menopausal symptoms. And here I wanted to share with you, let me go over here. The next slide here, one of our favorite patients, her name is Jay. When she first came to see me, she was 49 years old, going through menopause, getting 20 plus hot flashes every single day. She would come into my office, and when she laid down to get adjusted, she would literally be drenched in sweat because she was having these hot flashes just multiple times throughout the day. And it was completely disturbing her quality of life. She started getting adjusted, started implementing the 5 essentials, changing the way that she was eating. And within 2 months, she went from having 20 plus hot flashes a day to some days having none at all. And so it helped her tremendously to balance her hormones. And that was without synthetic hormones, without biological hormones, but it helped her to balance her hormones as she went through that stage of her body kind of lowering those estrogen levels overall. And so it is possible. So that is Jay's story. So the next one here is hypothyroidism. So some symptoms of an underactive thyroid. Thyroid can become enlarged and it can be kind of tender. Foggy memory, depression, lowered heart rate, thinning hair, a heavier menstrual cycle, achy and stiff muscles and joints, weight gain, elevated blood cholesterol, fatigue, sensitivity to cold. These are all symptoms of hypothyroidism. Now, hypothyroidism can happen for one of 2 reasons. The first reason is your thyroid could just be underactive. And there's several causes to that. The second reason is what's called Hashimoto's. And Hashimoto's is when you have an immune issue and your immune system is attacking your thyroid, and now your thyroid is underactive and it's not functioning well. And so I can tell you Hashimoto's is 10 times more common in women than it is in men. The number 2 prescription written every single year in this country is levothyroxine. So there's 114 million prescriptions that were written in 2016. It's probably a few more million since then, now that we're 4 years later in 2020. There's over 10 million prescriptions filled every single month for underactive thyroid. Humira is the number 1 profitable drug when it in the world. It's number 1 profitable drug, and it is written for people with autoimmune conditions. So very commonly also prescribed when it comes to Hashimoto's. And so if you want to make sure that you're one of the women who is not filling a prescription for their levothyroxine or for their Humira every single month, we have to make sure that we're doing some things differently, especially if you already know that you have a thyroid issue. And so the first health strategy when it comes to thyroid conditions is chiropractic care, hands down. I have never met someone who has a underactive thyroid, who has hypothyroidism or hyper, but really hypothyroidism, who doesn't have a completely trashed cervical spine. And so if you remember, when we look at your spine, what we want to see is 3 curves in your spine from the side. So your spine should have a 45-degree curve in your neck. Every single person, hands down, who has a thyroid condition is either straight or going in the opposite direction. Every single person. Many of them have pretty significant arthritis and degeneration that's going on in their spine as well. And so the first thing that we have to do is we have to work on your spine. And I wish working on your spine meant 1 adjustment and you got up off the table and you had a 45-degree curve and nerve supply was perfect to every cell, tissue, and organ in your body and you were good to go. But unfortunately, that's just not the case. It takes repetition. It takes consistency to change a spine. Every adjustment helps. Every adjustment assists in nerve function. But it's really getting an overall global curve back into the spine that's going to help that thyroid to start functioning better overall. So step number 1 is fix your spine. Step number 2 is, again, eliminate those hormone mimickers. And so thyroid is one of the first hormones to get thrown off when those hormone mimickers come within the body, especially when you have kind of deviating levels of estrogen, progesterone, et cetera. Number 3 is burst workouts or high intensity interval training. So this is different from menopausal women and women who are going through perhaps an osteoporosis diagnosis. We really want to focus on resistance training with that. This we need the high intensity interval training. So we don't want long bouts of cardio because that tends to increase things like cortisol, which is a stress hormone that's not good. What we want are short bursts of effort followed by short recoveries. And so that's called a burst or high intensity intervals. And so the way that you set up a HIIT workout is you want to do maybe 20 to, I'd say, 45 seconds of really high intensity work. And then you're going to relax for 20 to 45 seconds, 20 to 45 seconds of getting your heart rate up and doing a high intensity work, relax, etc. And you can repeat that for really anywhere from, I'd say, 10 to 20 minutes. It will do very well for you. You can also Google like Tabata workouts, which is 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off. But in any case, that type of workout has been shown through research to provide the best benefit for regulating hormones and for helping that thyroid to heal. And so HIIT workouts. Number 4 is we want to look at our nutrition. And so the keto diet for most people is a very good, I'd say a good framework to follow. What I mean by framework is there might be some people that eat more fat than others, and there might be some people that require some healthy carbohydrates. If you have a thyroid condition or you think you have a thyroid condition, you are one of the people that requires a healthy carbohydrate. And so you cannot completely cut out the carbs. You need a little bit of good carbs. What are good carbs? Like sweet potato, quinoa, etc. And so you also want to make sure that you're doing good quality protein that will help to support synthesis and metabolism in the thyroid. And so, of course, you can get your protein from, your meats and your eggs, etc., but also perhaps even thinking of doing a protein supplement. So in the office, one of my favorite protein supplements to talk with women who are experiencing thyroid issues is the bone broth protein. And so the bone broth protein also helps to heal the gut and gives you a good source of natural great protein. And so protein, healthy carbs, also doing iodine-rich foods. It's okay to do a small supplement of iodine, but I think doing iodine-rich foods is even better. So obviously, any nutrition that we can get from our food is better than getting it from supplementation, although supplementation exists just in case we can't get what we need through our food. And so things like seaweed, and you can kind of Google some good sources of iodine-rich foods, and then selenium and zinc. Selenium and zinc are both trace minerals that are found in our women's multivitamin. So really important to make sure you have those two things. B vitamins are also really important in helping to heal the thyroid overall. And then probiotics for the gut, D3. And then we also have an awesome supplement called Thyroid Plus that we've been using with a few women in the office who've seen some really significant progress in getting off of their Synthroid or levothyroxine and really transferring over to doing some more specific thyroid supplementation. And so that's as far as nutrition goes. And then the very last thing, again, is healing your digestive tract. And so I cannot emphasize enough how important digestion is for just overall healing. And so there are 4 R's that we look at when we talk about healing your digestive system. I'll go into them very briefly here. The first one is remove. And so you have to remove the inflammatory foods from your diet. You cannot supplement yourself out of a bad diet. You cannot supplement yourself out of a bad diet. You can't adjust yourself out of a bad diet, right? You can't exercise yourself out of a bad diet. And so you have to remove the things that are causing inflammation in your body overall. If you need help with those things, as far as food goes, please sign up for our next Nutrition 101 workshop, and we will go through the things that are causing you harm that you're eating. And so remove the bad, and then you want to replace with good. And so you want to make sure that you're pumping your body full of good vitamins and minerals and things that will help to build your gut and your health back up again. And so a good rule of thumb is doing a handful of greens with every meal, or a green supplement, shaking it up and taking that down with every meal. Also doing things like consuming bone broth or bone broth protein is great too. And then just making sure that you're getting a variety of fruits and vegetables. And of course, doing your supplementation in order to make sure you're getting good gut bacteria and then good nutrients through your women's multi, your D3, etc. So replacing with good quality whole foods, and then re-inoculating is looking at adding things in that are rich in probiotics. And so building back up your gut health. Most people don't realize that the little microorganisms that exist within your gut outnumber the cells in your body 10 to 1. So I want you to think about who's actually in control of your body. There are more gut microorganisms inside of you than there are cells in your body. And so we want to make sure that there's a good balance in that microbiome so that we can live synergistically with those gut bacteria, and we can help them to help us to build health. And so re-inoculating. And then the last one is repairing. And so repair comes down to just being consistent over time. And so gut health issues can take anywhere from 6 months to several years to truly heal overall. I'll share with you a quick story. A colleague of mine, his wife suffered with eczema as she was growing up. And if you know anyone with eczema or suffered with eczema yourself, you probably know that it is something that tends to, what the medical profession says, is clear up or cure itself over time. And so most kids will grow out of eczema. If your eczema persists into adulthood, it tends to be a little bit harder to heal. And we say that it doesn't go away as easily. Well, this woman, unfortunately, her eczema persisted into a very severe form of eczema where her entire body is just completely red and painful. Her face, her arms, she gets these big patches overall. And so, of course, when you have eczema, the solution in the medical model is to take corticoids, so corticosteroids. And so she's been taking steroids for a very long time to help herself through her eczema. And very recently, because of the paradigm that we live in, of course, we say that the body knows how to heal as long as there's no interference, and drugs are an interference. Medications do cause toxicity. And so she decided to cut out the steroids. And with that, she has been going through this healing process, which is really her gut healing from years of being trashed by medications within her body. And so now this past month, she was about 50% of her days in bed because she couldn't move, because she was in so much pain with this rash all over her entire body. And so I share that story with you to share with you how completely amazing I think this woman is. For trusting in her body's ability to heal, because how easy would it be to go back to taking steroids again? But she knows that with time and with consistency, there will be a day when this isn't her reality anymore. She just has to give her body a chance, innate the chance to heal itself and do what it needs to do. And she's doing a whole host of other protocols with this. But I just want you to realize healing takes time. And how easy would it be, again, to step into the medical model and just say, cover up my symptom? But how can you do that understanding that there is an underlying cause? There's an underlying reason, even if you don't see the skin patches, there's an underlying reason why this is happening. And that is the part that we have to focus in on. And that is the part that we have to heal. And so healing your digestive issues is extremely important. If you'd like to talk a little bit more about that, just let me know and we can dive into that at the office as well. All right, so we move into depression and anxiety. And so if you feel comfortable with it on the right-hand side, if you have felt depressed or anxious within the past 2 weeks, go ahead and drop a yes or like a hello emoji on the right-hand side. And so I say that, and as you start to see yeses or like waves up there, I just want you to realize our last workshop that we did this, we had about, I'd say 60 women in the room. And I want you to know that your feelings of anxiety and depression are 100% normal. And you are not the only person who is feeling these things. It is so common to experience feelings of depression and anxiety, specifically with depression. It's fascinating. They started studying depression many years ago, and every year since they've charted the numbers in American history on depression, every single year we get more and more depressed as a nation. There is only 1 year when we saw depression actually go down. And that year was 2011, which seems a bit counterintuitive, doesn't it? And so they did some research and they looked at why in 2011 did depression get better. And the reason is for the first time in a very long time, there was unity in our country. And for the first time in a very long time, we had a purpose outside of ourselves. And so I am not a medical doctor, psychiatrist, psychologist. Depression is not my specialty at all. But what I can tell you through speaking with many, 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 many women who suffer with depression and suffer with anxiety, we tend to make it about us. And so when we are depressed, we are focusing inward. And so my challenge to you is, if you feel those feelings, my challenge to you is try to focus outward. If you can focus on others, serving others, or serving a higher purpose, it is very difficult to feel those feelings. And so one of my big strategies for this is gratitude. And so I have talked with many people about this, and I have seen this change many people in their attitude, in just their overall being when they come into the office. I think this is incredibly powerful. I've also shared this with people who have not chosen to move forward with it. If you suffer with depression on a regular basis, I challenge you to do a gratitude journal, and to continue to do that gratitude journal. Give yourself, 90 days at the very least, but I'd say 6 months of doing a gratitude journal. There's so much research on this. There's a research article that looked at 300 people, and they followed them. They split them into 3 groups of 100. They followed one group who every single day wrote a letter of gratitude. The second group every single day wrote a letter of just negativity and bad stuff that happened within their day. And then the third group, they just wrote like a neutral letter. And so they journaled a neutral letter. And so they followed these 3 groups, and they found that the group who focused on the good, the group who maintained gratitude, were largely happier than the other people. One study found up to 25% happier than the people who were neutral, and way happier than the people who were negative. And so there's so much power in gratitude. And so what does gratitude mean? It doesn't have to be this big lengthy thing where you sit down for an hour and you think about all the things that you're happy about, but just in the morning or before you go to bed, or both, I just want you to pick like 3 things. What am I truly grateful for? Or go back to 3 moments in your life that you're so grateful for. It's one of my favorite meditations to do. I like to do meditations as I go to sleep. I close my eyes and I have 2 moments that I just think about, and I put myself in that moment and I feel it with all of my senses. One moment is very simple. It's me sitting on my couch. It's the afternoon sun coming into the window, and my dog Presley, who's a 6-pound Chihuahua, on top of me, just licking my face. She does it every once in a while when she gets in a mood, and it is one of my happy places, and I love it more than anything, and it is one thing that will always make me happy and grateful. So I put myself in that place. My second one is when I graduated from chiropractic school. It was the same weekend as my birthday, and I had my mom, my dad, and my brothers in town, and we had the most fantastic weekend. We did all these fun things together. It was in Atlanta, Georgia, and we were sitting outside of a park, and we had the back like trunk open to the forerunner, and we had a watermelon, and we just sat there, and we were my dad, it was a whole watermelon, and then I don't even know, he had like some kind of knife where he chopped it open, and we sat there, and it was just the 5 of us. And I remember in that moment feeling so grateful to have my family on a sunny day, to be graduating from chiropractic school. And so those are just 2 moments I go back to. Your moment can be anything, but pick a moment and close your eyes and just feel that gratitude, and that will help you so much. And so that is one of the biggest things that you can do. I'll also tell you that exercise is huge. There is a 1999 study, again, fascinating. It was a study that looked at Zoloft compared to exercise, and it found hands down people in general, women who exercise have a huge anti-depression benefit. And so compared to medication. And so medication, it does not beat exercise any day of the week. And so exercise is absolutely huge. And when I say exercise, Again, you don't have to go out and do 30 minutes of cardio. For this, just walking has a huge benefit on your brain. And so if you can go out and do a 30-minute walk or an hour walk, but especially if you can do something where you're getting your heart rate up, you will start to feel better. And I'll also tell you, when it comes to feelings of depression and anxiety, I went through a period of time where I certainly felt depressed in college. And depression is not sadness, as any of you know who have suffered with depression. It's really a sense of like hopelessness and unworthiness and almost guilt, maybe sometimes shame that comes in there. And I went through a period of time where I felt alone. And so I know what this feels like, and I'm not there anymore. And I think that one of the things that's very powerful for getting out of it is starting habits. And so those habits, the key to starting a habit is just taking one step. And so if you can take one step forward, it's just about, saying, I'm gonna walk for 5 minutes today. That's all. I'm gonna exercise for 10 minutes today. That's all. It doesn't have to be this big overbearing goal that you put on yourself. It's just reading one page, drinking 1 cup of water. It's just starting. And then after you start it, just keep doing it and make it a part of your routine, and you'll see big things that change overall. Chiropractic is huge with depression and anxiety as well, because chiropractic helps to, of course, normalize just physiology. And a lot of times feelings of depression and anxiety are changes in our physiology within us. So anything that helps to regulate our physiology helps us tremendously. Number 4, you must avoid sugar crashes. Must avoid sugar crashes. And so when you consume sugar, sugar lights up your brain much the same way that cocaine lights up your brain. And so literally you have sugar lights up your brain, you get this high and you feel good. And then after the sugar kind of goes through your body, your insulin comes down and you have this crash. And when you have that crash for somebody who suffers with depression, that crash is lower than a crash is for other people. And so we need to get the sugar out of your diet, not to mention that decreasing inflammation overall will again help to regulate your physiology and bring you back to a place where you're not feeling those feelings of depression. Most of you know that serotonin is produced in the gut. So 90%, up to 90% of serotonin is produced in your gut. Serotonin is your happy hormone. And so if your happy hormone is coming from your belly and you're putting bad things in your belly, you're going to feel bad. And so it's just one more reason to continue to take care of your digestive system and to continue to fuel your body with good foods. One thing that we always say in our team, and really within chiropractic, within Max Living, when we're training as doctors and team members with each other, we always say, if people knew what we knew, they would do what we do. I feel that way with nutrition. If people only knew how bad lollipops were, they'd never give one to their kid. If they only knew how bad the bag of Doritos was, they'd never eat it. If they only knew how bad the diet soda was, they would never have one again. If they only knew what I knew, then they would do what I do. I feel this way tremendously about nutrition. You have to take care of your gut. And the good news is we have so many recipes that make eating well so good. And so again, if you have any questions about that, our Nutrition 101 workshop, or just ask me personally, we can walk through that together. Number 6, here are your key supplements: vitamin C, omegas, vitamin B, and sleep and mood. Our sleep and mood formula is very good. It has 5-HTP in it, which is basically a precursor for serotonin. And so that helps just to kind of upregulate serotonin and make sure that those pathways are going well. Vitamin B is also huge. There are countless studies that show people who suffer from depression tend to have vitamin B deficiency. And so doing a B complex on a regular basis is something that you'll find will help with energy and focus overall. And then omegas help to decrease inflammation in the body. And then vitamin C has been found to be very important also. People who suffer with depression tend to, again, have impaired gut function and impaired immune function with that. And vitamin C has been shown to be very powerful in gut healing and immune function overall as well. And so that is depression and anxiety. The next one is breast cancer. And so as we already talked about, 1 in 8 women is expected to get breast cancer if you're living the way the average American lives. 1 in 3 women will get some sort of cancer. And so cancer is the number 2 cause of death right now in our country. And so one of the biggest things you can do if you go to an alternative medical doctor who is treating cancer, one of their biggest things on their list of things to do is to see a chiropractor. And one of the reasons it's so important is it actually stops the chronic stress response in your body. And so I've had this conversation with several patients, but one of my favorite things to do is after an adjustment to see somebody get up off of the table and they just go like this. Have you ever had that feeling after an adjustment? It's one of my favorite things to watch as I'm going through the bays and adjusting people. The reason being is we are in a chronic state of stress. And so most of us are stressed from the time we wake up in the morning until the time we go to bed at night. And so we get up with the alarm clock, we're stressed, we're rushed out the door to go to work, we're getting kids' lunches together, we're trying to find shoes, we go into traffic, we're stressed in traffic, we get to the office and we don't like our jobs, we're waiting for our lunch break and then that's too short and then we go back to work and then we're waiting for the end of the day and then we go home and we're exhausted. And so it's this chronic state of stress. Well, that chronic state of stress has a big impact on your health overall. The stress response is a very important and good response in a short period of time when we have to respond to an emergency. It is not a good thing when it is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so that chronic stress response decreases the things that don't matter. And so when it comes to survival, I should say, it decreases immune function, it decreases gut function. What it actually increases is like blood flow to your periphery so that you can run or fight in that stress response. And so every chiropractic adjustment, it breaks the stress response. It actually promotes the opposite, which is your parasympathetic response, which is that rest and digest response. And so that's why when you get up off the table and you feel like, I could go take a nap now. Like, I'm so glad it's the end of the day. I feel relaxed. It's that rest and digest parasympathetic response. Very important with cancer. And so cancer tends to be, one of the biggest factors is emotional factors and stress in somebody's life who's dealing with cancer. Number 2, and I have permission to say this, you cannot live Dr. Thaddeus's college lifestyle. At one of our seminars, I took 2 fish bowls, and in one fishbowl, I did Dr. Elise's college lifestyle. So I filled the fishbowl with water and kale. And then in the other fishbowl, I dumped in soda and Doritos and candy. And which fishbowl do you think was nice and clear and clean? And which fishbowl do you think was just like a toxic wasteland? And so I'm kidding when I say this. Dr. Thaddeus didn't have a terrible college lifestyle, but you can't live the lifestyle where you're doing pizza on Friday nights from Papa John's, where fast food is a regular part of your family's regimen, where you're drinking soda and you're binge drinking alcohol and you're smoking. You can't live that lifestyle when you have cancer or when you don't have cancer. If you want to prevent cancer, it's important to make sure that you're, again, fueling your body with good foods. For somebody who does have cancer, one of the biggest factors, again, in helping people to heal is emotional, and it is the refusal to quit. It is the understanding and the knowing that I will overcome this. Those are the people that overcome the most significant cancers overall. And so a positive mindset is incredibly important. Pumping the body full of oxygen. So again, one of the alternative treatments when it comes to cancer care is hyperbaric chambers, which is basically putting oxygen within the body. And that's because most cancers, and most breast cancers, they do not like aerobic environments. They don't like oxygen. They thrive in anaerobic environments. And so oxygenating your body is incredibly important. The easiest and the cheapest way to oxygenate your body is not going into a hyperbaric chamber. It's doing exercise. Every time you do exercise, you're pumping oxygen to every single cell in your body, and you're helping your body to heal tremendously. And so again, just one more reason to make sure that you're getting your exercise in. And then the last 2 are again, D3 and omegas. If you haven't noticed, I've said D3 and omegas in almost every single one of these. You are doing yourself a disservice if you do not take these 2 supplements on a daily basis. So women's reproduction. So PMS. PMS are those symptoms that I described that I experienced growing up. It's the cramping, the back pain, the fatigue, the irritability, the moodiness. More than 75% of women say that they have PMS, and an extremely high portion of those say that it causes them to stay home every single month because of the symptoms that they're experiencing. Endometriosis is when you have abnormal growth of the tissue within your uterus. 176 million women suffer from this. It causes extreme pain when they go through their cycles. And then there's PCOS. PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, again, very common. Over 20% of women childbearing age suffer from this. This is when there are multiple tiny cysts on the ovaries that cause pain and also make it difficult for the ovaries to function, and therefore for conceiving a child to be possible. And so when it comes to women's reproductive health, chiropractic care, again, at the very top of that list. And then there's some specific supplements that we can take to help to balance hormones. And so if you're somebody who suffers with an estrogen dominance, and the best way to know this is really to test and not to guess. We are starting to use what's called a Dutch test in the office. I bought one for myself and one for another patient who is going to do that panel. And it comes back with your hormone panel, and it shows you your levels of hormones and where the gaps are between in the hormone metabolism. And so something like DIM is a compound that's found in cruciferous vegetables. So those are great to add to your diet, but a DIM supplement will give you a very high potent version of it. And that helps with estrogen metabolism. And so if you're somebody like myself who has, or who used to have very severe cramping, or kind of breast tenderness as you are approaching your period. Again, the extreme fatigue and the moodiness, a lot of times those are symptoms of estrogen dominance, and DIM can be something that helps your body to metabolize through the estrogen in a good way. And so DIM is a great supplement. We sell that in the office. That's one of the key things that has helped me to get a hold of my cycles, on top of chiropractic care and eating well and exercising. And so all of those things together, helping my body to heal, has helped me to be in a place where I don't experience that anymore. And so I'll be candid with you. I started my period today. And back in the day, if I started my period today, I would be absolutely miserable. And I can't tell you that I don't feel it, because I still feel it. It's still something that's going on in my body, but it's not something that completely like knocks me out the way that it used to. So DIM is fantastic. We also have a supplement that's a little bit more expansive than that called Women's Hormone Balance. And that one does have DIM in it, but it's just a lesser amount. And then it has some other things in it as well that help to regulate hormones. And so I have used the Women's Hormone Balance not only with women who suffer from like PMS issues, but actually women who are going through menopause. And so they see a big difference in kind of transitioning through, again, those lower levels of estrogen using the Women's Hormone Balance. And then magnesium is a big one too. A lot of women who suffer with reproductive health issues tend to be deficient in magnesium. And so that's another good one to take. And then the exercise, high intensity interval training, and then detoxification. Again, very, very, very important in women's health overall. So we're about to get into kind of some fun stuff here. This is a study that shows the importance of omega-3s for women. And so when I say you're doing yourself a disservice by not taking omega-3s, if you are a woman, this is a study that absolutely underlines it. And so I'm not going to read through the whole thing here, but it says that it helps to prevent preeclampsia, postpartum depression, menopausal symptoms, postmenopausal symptoms, osteoporosis, breast cancer. And so there's so many good benefits to making sure that you have a good ratio of omega-3s in your body. And most of the time that's going to come from taking an omega-3 supplement. We have so many testimonials of this. And so one specifically comes to mind, but we have a 27-year-old, actually she's probably several years older than that now, but when I first met her, she was 27, and she came into the office diagnosed with PCOS, told that she would not have children. And here she is several years later, probably 4 years later now. So she's 31, and she has 2 beautiful babies. And so that is all from just living the 5 essentials, getting adjusted. She has no her PCOS is not active at all. Meaning she has no cysts on her ovaries or anything like that. And her symptoms have gone down drastically just from getting adjusted and living the other essentials. I want to take a second to talk about birth control. And so I think birth control is probably one of the most dangerous things that you can possibly put in your body. And so it is linked to nutritional deficiencies. It is linked to yeast infections. It is linked to anxiety and depression, an increased risk of breast cancer. It's linked to increased risk of blood clots, heart attack and stroke, of migraine headaches, of gallbladder and liver issues, including tumors developing, an increase in blood pressure and weight gain. And I'll give you an example of the blood clot, heart attack, and stroke. I think that most of us have heard of Yaz. And so I remember when Yaz first came out, and I remember them saying, you know, who said the whole slogan or the whole reason for pushing Yaz was like, who said you have to have a period every single month? Like, go ahead and take this and you get to have your period every 3 months. And in my, head now, when I hear that, I think to myself, well, God said I'm supposed to have a period every single month. My body says I'm supposed to have a period every single month. That's why me and every other woman on the planet has their period every single month. And so again, there is no biological free lunch. And so you go and you take something like that and you screw up your cycles, you screw up your hormones intentionally by taking birth control. And all of a sudden things start to happen. And so Yaz is one of the top linked birth controls to having a stroke. It's like the #1 side effect of taking Yaz. And so I think birth control is one medication. If you're on it, if your child is on it, I would transition and I would get off of it. And so then what do you do for birth control? I highly suggest tracking your cycles. It's not a perfect science by any means, but it's better than just not looking at anything at all. And so you can track kind of like your fertile window, and you can know when you're fertile and when you're infertile. And then of course, just using condoms. And so that is the 2 best ways to make sure that we're, not getting pregnant if we don't want to. But I find birth control to be very, very, very dangerous. All right. So would you ever put something that has reproductive toxins, a chemical found in paint strippers that is carcinogenic, pesticides, herbicides, Roundup weed killer, bleaches, dioxins, antifreeze, would you ever take that and put it in the delicate tissue of your vagina? And so the answer, of course, is no. This absolutely blew my mind when I started doing research into tampons. And I think that this is something that's a little bit more widely known now than it was before, but this is an industry that's largely unregulated. And so if you look at all of those toxins on the left-hand side of the screen, if you get normal conventional tampons, they are so toxic, and you're putting it right inside of you in all of that delicate tissue so that your body absorbs all of these toxins. And so there's research that shows that there's actually chemicals within the tampons that will make you bleed more than if you did not use them at all. And so one of my biggest steps in healing my reproductive health was starting to switch over to organic cotton tampons. And luckily now, if you go to Target, you go to Kroger, they have them very readily available. And they're not expensive at all. It's not a big jump as far as cost goes, but I would never, ever, ever use a regular tampon again. I would only get the 100% cotton tampons that are completely chemical free. And then the other thing that some people swear by, I haven't chosen to use this yet for myself, but are the cups. And so there are cups that you can also stick in your vagina that apparently have very good like coverage, they don't leak. And then you buy it once and you can rewash it and reuse it, every single month for your cycle. And that seems to work very well for some women. So it's something that's worth trying. And I guess if a few of you come back and give me some more good testimonials, maybe I'll consider trying it myself as well. All right, what about breast implants? And so again, I feel like this is something that's a little bit less talked about, but believe it or not, well, it's not really a believe it or not, there is no biological free lunch. And so you cannot put an implant in your body and expect it to do nothing to your body. There are always consequences for anything that we put on or in our bodies, and breast plants are one of them as well. And so I think most of us at this point have heard of breast implant illness. It is usually something that ends up being a diagnosis of exclusion. And so many women who have breast implant illness, they will have just extreme fatigue. They will get headaches. They will have fogginess. They'll have changes in like the color of their eyes and their skin and just in their overall health. And they won't be able to figure out what's wrong with them. They go and they have their implants removed, and suddenly it's like their whole health completely turns around. So specifically, if you want to look at some research on this, there's a 2011 FDA release that said that women with breast implants are more likely to develop anaplastic large cell lymphoma, which is cancer of the immune system. There's another study that found a 21% increased risk of cancer for women with implants compared to women of the same age and general population. That's a huge study right now. A 20% increased risk is incredible. There's a 2018 report that said there's a 22% increased risk of severe autoimmune or rheumatic disorders. And then up to a 60% increased risk of Sjogren's, MS, sarcoidosis. And that's based on looking at 11,500 women. And so breast implants, I wouldn't get it. I'd be lying if I told you that I didn't wish that I could go and get them. And I didn't wish that I didn't have, I was more ignorant to some of the things that I know in my life. I wish I could go and have a nice peanut butter and jelly sandwich and some nice white Wonder Bread. But there are things in life that when you start to learn a little bit more about, you just choose against it. If you're somebody who has implants, it might be something that you would want to consider taking them out with time. And so just important information to bring up for overall health. And then the very last thing here, dowager's hump. And so this is talking about that little old lady syndrome. And so that's that hump on the thoracic spine right below your neck. And so this was a study of 610 women who were followed over 13 and a half years. The age range of the women in the study was between 67 and 93 years old. And they discovered that women with the larger curvatures and pre-existing vertebral fractures were more likely to die prematurely because of the spinal condition. And so what does that mean? If you are subluxated, if your spine is not in the proper alignment, you are literally more likely to have a health condition and more likely to die from it. That is the importance of taking care of the nervous system. And so your nervous system is not just the cause of your back pain and your neck pain. Your nerves innervate every single cell, tissue, and organ in your body. And so if you're having chronic pain, that's really a red flag that there's something else going on. And so we have to take care of the nerves. There are only 3 reasons ever that your body does not heal and function well. Number 1 is a lack of nerve supply. And so subluxation damage in the nerves will make it so that those cells cannot function well. Number 2 is a lack of nutrients. And number 3 is toxicity. Those are the only 3 reasons that cells do not heal and function well. When you can restore those 3 reasons, when you can take those 3 things out, if they're missing, then all of a sudden you'll start to see health regained in the body if you give it enough time. And so this is one x-ray from somebody within our office. And so before on the left-hand side, it's kind of hard to see here, but the biggest thing we want to look at on the left-hand side is you see 64 millimeters of forward head carriage. That means that that person's head was forward more than 2.5 inches. And so over time, in a very short period of time, so from September 2018 to March 2019, we brought that back to 37 millimeters. And so that's absolutely fantastic. Symptoms, of course, alleviated, but even more than that, with nerve function, that means that person's lifespan is literally improved. And so for taking care of the spine, it's all about getting adjusted for the rest of your life. Doing weight-bearing exercise will also help to strengthen the bones in your spine, and then minimizing the things that cause your spine to move out of alignment. And so in order to get adjusted less, we want to make sure we're minimizing thoughts, emotional stresses, traumas, like sitting in bad posture, or holding our purse on our shoulder all the time, or bending, lifting, twisting, those traumas. And then the very last thing is toxicity. And so if we can minimize those 3 T's, and if we can get adjusted for the rest of our life, what I have seen, not only through research, but really through case studies of our patients in our office and families that I know that have been under chiropractic care for a long time, is that that will help you to be healthier overall. And so that's what I have for you guys here tonight. So if you have any questions at all, I'm going to go back through and just kind of scroll through our feed. If you have any questions, feel free to ask right now. For the makeup brands, Lisbeth, I will tell you a couple of other brands that I like, but the one that I use, again, is called Crunchy. So it's CRUNCHI. So if you go to crunchy.com / and then my name, Elise Hernandez, and then you can go on there and you can take a look at things. In the office, though, ask me and I have samples. And so you can take a look through the colors, etc. I think that I would love to do that is talking about the Dutch panel. And so, yes, we can certainly talk about the Dutch panel. I can tell you that I would be willing to do it with you at cost. It is a little bit pricey. I think the retail cost of it, including sitting down and looking at the evaluation with a doctor, is like $500. And I believe that we got it for somewhere around $260, $270. And so I can talk to you about that. If you'd like to do that, let me know in the office and we can order one for you. Recommendation on the best way to ease off of birth control. Especially if you've been on it for a long time. I know that that can be difficult. I think that that is something where with your OB, you're going to let them know you want to get off of it, and they will be able to decrease the dose over time. And so there will be some changes that your body has to go through as you go through that process, especially if you've been on it for a long time. Think about it. You're giving your body a chemical every single day for a period of time. Your body is now used to getting that chemical, and your body is now going to have to go through a process of healing to start to regulate your hormones on its own. And so it might be an uncomfortable process, but it would be something that I would just say stick with it, and I would work with your OB to start to reduce your dose. Recommendations to reduce the hump, dowager's hump. And so I think it's a whole body approach, but doing your home care exercises is really important and getting adjusted. And I know, April, you've been adjusted for many, 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 many years. Let's talk about some more maybe specific exercises that you can do to strengthen the muscles back there. And then just continuing to help your body to be healthier overall. You'll always hear me say that your spine tells a story of your life, and it tells a story of your decisions. If you take good actions in your health, your spine will respond in a good way, and it will correct the subluxation patterns that you have. And so what does that mean? Eating better, exercising, detoxing, getting sleep, drinking water, getting sunshine. If you can do more of those things, that's how you're going to start to reverse that if it's something that you haven't seen get better up until this point. You and I can talk a little bit further about what we need to do, even though I know you know what we need to do, but we can talk a little bit further specifically for you about what we can do, and we can kind of monitor your x-rays to see how things change. Dosage of omega-3s. Shivanda, if you look at the omegas that you have at home, or if you look at the omegas that we have in the office, to be honest, off the top of my head, I don't know what the dosage is, but I take one of those omegas every single day. And so whatever dosage we have in the office is what I take. Yes, Kathleen, you will be able to watch this again later. I'm going to post it on our YouTube page. And so if you want to follow our YouTube channel, this will be our second video up there. Yay. And it's called Health Warriors. And so you can search us on YouTube and that will be up there. Katie asked, how do I feel about vegan instead of keto? A vegan diet is not necessarily bad. I don't think that eating animal protein is bad either. The problem with most vegans is that when they go vegan, they tend to carb load. And so instead of eating good quality food and a bunch of veggies and getting creative with their vegetables, they tend to move towards doing like a lot of pasta and a lot of bread. And so that style of vegan is way more unhealthy than eating your red meat in the first place. I think that a big misconception is that red meat is bad. It is not red meat that causes heart disease or vascular issues or plaquing of your arteries. It is red meat that has a bad ratio of fatty acids and is toxic. And that's your conventionally raised red meats. And so when you look at grass-fed beef, it tends to be completely different in its composition. And so it has better ratio of fatty acids in it and it's less toxic. I don't think that means we should be having a huge steak with every meal, but I think that doing some meat periodically throughout the week is a great thing. And so again, I don't know that we have to do like 100% keto either. I do think though that it's a good idea to have a good ratio of good fats in your diet and then to fill it in with proteins and very, very low carbs, just depending on who you are and what does well for your body. If you are going to go 100% vegan, you need to make sure that you're doing a B supplement because you only get your B vitamins through red meat. And so you want to make sure you're doing a B supplement. And then also I'd say just being on a really strict supplementation regimen in general to make sure that you're getting the nutrition that you need. So vegan's not necessarily bad. You just have to know how to do it right. I think keto is probably best for most people. And I have a challenge with saying keto. I do think keto is good, but just know that my keto might be different than your keto. And so it just depends on who you are and what I suggest that you try doing a lot of fat and you see how your body responds. If you feel good, that would be good for you. And then you can kind of start to moderate your macros based on that. Do I recommend any hair products? Yes, I certainly do. I am going to, if you guys want to join Vitality Family Chiropractic Health Warriors on Facebook, I will post a list of my favorite beauty products. And so I have several of them. Alafia is a brand that I use for my shampoo conditioner. There's another one that I don't remember right now that I'm using that I really like. And so Alafia is a great one though, but I will post my favorite brands on the Facebook page for you. Specific brand of organic tampons? Not necessarily. I just kind of get what is on sale and what comes in. I like the long applicators. I don't like the ones that are kind of like weird where you take them out and put them back in. I just like the regular size tampons. So not necessarily. I think if you're just getting the organic tampons in general, that most of them are made decently well. So I go to Target for the most part to get those. So food that contains omega-3s. You can get a ton of great fats from your diet. So coconut oil, olive oil that's not cooked, butter has a great source of fats in it, flax seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, salmon, avocado. So there's a ton of foods that will have a good ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s. The challenge is when you look at the average person, your omega-3 to omega-6 range should be between 1-to-1 and 4-to-1. 1-to-1 and 4-to-1. The average person is 20-to-1. And so can you eat your way back into a good range? Absolutely. And you want to make sure that you're doing your best to eat all of those things. But I do still think supplementing is extremely important. Great question. Awesome. Well, I had a ton of fun with you guys tonight. I'm hoping that our workshops get to go in person here soon. So it's a little funny not being able to see anybody and just talking to myself for a little while. So I hope that this was informational. I hope that you learned a lot. Please give me feedback if there's anything that you want to know more about, or if there's anything that we could do better, let me know. And of course, if you have any questions at all in the office, please let me know. We are here for you and we love you tremendously. So I hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you in the office this week.